America's geography just got a whole lot weirder in 2025. While most people think they know the basics about US territories, recent surveys and population updates have revealed some absolutely mind-bending facts that will make you question everything you thought you knew about our borders. Take a piece of one state that requires driving through another country just to reach it, or a town that exists in complete defiance of basic geography, or the state that sits closest to Africa in a way that will shock you. These 25 geographic oddities have become even more bizarre with the latest data, featuring populations you won't believe and boundaries that defy all logic. Minnesota's forgotten corner gets even stranger. Picture this. You want to visit a piece of Minnesota, but first you have to drive through Canada to get there. The northwest angle represents one of America's strangest territorial situations, and the latest 2025 data shows this geographic oddity has become even more bizarre than anyone imagined. The population shifts since 2020 tell a remarkable story of isolation. What started as a community already hanging by a thread has experienced dramatic changes that reflect the unique challenges of living in America's most disconnected territory. This sparsely inhabited exclave continues to face the mounting pressures of maintaining a viable community in such a remote location. Climate change has dramatically altered the water levels around Lake of the Woods, affecting both the practical and legal aspects of this territorial anomaly. Lower water levels have exposed previously submerged land, creating new questions about exactly where Minnesota's boundaries actually lie. The changing shoreline has forced residents to adapt their daily routines and has complicated everything from boat launches to property assessments. Advanced GPS technology has produced a stunning revelation about the northwest angle's actual size. Precision measurements completed in 2025 show the area encompasses 2.3 square miles more territory than previous calculations indicated. This discovery has triggered new boundary surveys and raised questions about tax assessments, voting districts, and resource management that had been based on outdated measurements for decades. New fishing regulations have created additional layers of jurisdictional confusion that would challenge even the most experienced legal minds. Anglers now must navigate rules from Minnesota, Canada, and federal authorities, with different seasons, licenses, and catch limits depending on which side of invisible water boundaries they happen to cast their lines. The area's unique regulatory status has attracted cryptocurrency miners seeking to exploit potential loopholes in oversight. These operations have strained the limited electrical infrastructure while creating new questions about taxation and regulatory authority in a place where jurisdiction was already complicated. Legal battles over internet service provision have intensified the digital divide affecting residents. Competing claims over which country should provide service, combined with the physical challenges of running cables across international waters, have left many residents with connectivity that would have been considered inadequate decades ago. This digital isolation has transformed the northwest angle into a place where 21st century technology struggles to reach 19th century boundaries. But Minnesota's border confusion is just the beginning. Rivers have created their own share of territorial puzzles across America, sometimes trapping entire communities on the wrong side of state lines. The Iowa town that defies geography. Carter Lake presents one of these river-created puzzles in its most extreme form. Looking at a map, you'd naturally assume Carter Lake sits in Nebraska, given how it's completely surrounded by Cornhusker State territory. The visual makes no sense until you realize this Iowa town represents one of America's most confusing geographic situations, where a river literally moved an entire community from one state to another. The Missouri River's dramatic course change in 1977 created this geographic anomaly when flooding shifted the river 1.25 miles to the southeast. What had been Iowa territory on the west bank suddenly found itself surrounded by Nebraska, creating an exclave that defies conventional understanding of state boundaries. This single flood event transformed Carter Lake from a typical border town into America's most geographically isolated municipal government. Infrastructure demands have forced Carter Lake to navigate challenges that no other American city faces. Water lines, electrical grids, and telecommunications networks must cross state boundaries to serve Iowa residents living in Nebraska territory. The town requires special interstate agreements for basic utility maintenance, creating bureaucratic complications that can delay essential repairs for weeks. Emergency services. Coordination has evolved into a complex operation requiring constant communication between Iowa and Nebraska dispatch centers. Fire trucks from Nebraska might arrive first at Iowa emergencies, while Iowa ambulances must navigate Nebraska traffic laws to reach their own residents. These arrangements require both states to maintain specialized protocols for cross-border emergency response. Tax implications have transformed Carter Lake into an unexpected business destination. Companies discovered they can benefit from Iowa's corporate tax structure while operating in what appears to be Nebraska territory. This has attracted businesses seeking regulatory advantages, bringing new commercial development that further complicates the jurisdictional maze. The Missouri River continues shifting course, requiring constant boundary surveys to determine exactly where Iowa ends and Nebraska begins. Recent surveys have revealed additional territorial complications as the river creates new channels and abandons old ones, potentially affecting property ownership and tax assessments throughout the area. The 1972 Supreme Court case affirmed Iowa's jurisdiction over Carter Lake, establishing precedents for how river-created enclaves exercise municipal authority across state lines. Modern GPS technology has uncovered previously unknown territorial complications, including properties that exist partially in both states and utility easements that cross multiple jurisdictions. Carter Lake continues challenging state jurisdiction concepts, proving that natural disasters can create administrative puzzles that persist for generations. But rivers aren't the only geographic features that create surprising territorial relationships across vast distances. The African distance that shocks Americans. Which U.S. state sits closest to Africa? Most Americans would immediately point to Florida, reasoning that its southern position and tropical climate make it the obvious choice. The assumption seems logical when you consider Florida's location jutting into the Atlantic Ocean, surrounded by warm waters that mirror African coastal conditions. This geographic assumption crumbles when you examine the actual measurements. Maine holds the distinction of being America's closest point to Africa, specifically at Quoddy Head Peninsula. The counterintuitive reality challenges everything most people believe about American geography and continental relationships. Quoddy Head sits exactly 3,154 miles from El Bedoua, a rural commune in Morocco, making Maine's easternmost point significantly closer to Africa than any Florida location. These precise 2025 measurements represent the most accurate distance calculations ever recorded between the two continents, thanks to advanced satellite positioning technology that has refined geographic data to unprecedented levels of precision. The new satellite positioning systems have eliminated previous measurement uncertainties, providing data accurate to within inches rather than miles. These technological improvements have revealed that earlier distance estimates contained significant errors, with some calculations off by hundreds of miles. The refined measurements now serve as the definitive standard for intercontinental distance planning. Maine's tourism industry has embraced this unexpected geographic connection, developing marketing campaigns that highlight the state's unique African proximity. Visitors now travel specifically to experience standing at America's closest point to Africa, creating new tourism revenue streams for communities along the eastern coast. Cultural exchange programs have flourished based on this geographic reality, connecting Maine communities with Moroccan counterparts across the Atlantic. Educational institutions have established student exchange programs, while artists collaborate on projects that celebrate the unexpected continental connection. These initiatives demonstrate how geographic facts can foster international relationships. The lighthouse at Quoddy Head has become a symbolic bridge between continents, representing the geographic reality that continues to astound visitors. The structure serves as a tangible reminder of America's unexpected proximity to Africa, with thousands of tourists annually making pilgrimages to witness this geographic phenomenon firsthand. This geographic reality persistently surprises both visitors and Maine residents, challenging preconceived notions about continental relationships. The fact that you can stand in Maine and be closer to Africa than someone standing in Miami continues to reshape how Americans understand their country's place in global geography. But distance isn't the only geographic factor that creates confusion across American territories. Alaska's time zone chaos reaches new heights. Alaska's enormous landmass creates time-keeping challenges that would make even the most organized scheduler throw up their hands in frustration. The state stretches across such a vast distance that it technically spans 4 different time zones, yet Alaska operates under just one official time designation. This means residents in the westernmost Aleutian Islands experience sunrise and sunset hours that differ dramatically from those living in the state's eastern regions. The state technically covers territory that should fall under Pacific, Alaska, Hawaii Aleutian, and Samoa time zones based on longitude calculations. However, Alaska Standard Time governs the entire state, creating situations where some communities experience noon, while the sun position suggests it should be 9 a.m. or 3 p.m. This temporal mismatch affects everything from business operations to basic daily routines. Legislative proposals introduced in 2024 aim to address these timing complications by potentially splitting Alaska into multiple time zones. State lawmakers recognized that the current single-zone system creates significant coordination problems for businesses, government agencies, and residents trying to manage schedules across the state's massive territory. These proposals reflect growing recognition that Alaska's geographic reality requires more nuanced time management approaches. Remote communities have developed their own unofficial time systems to accommodate their unique circumstances and natural rhythms. Many villages operate according to local sunrise and sunset patterns rather than official clock times, creating informal scheduling systems that align with seasonal daylight changes. These localized practices often conflict with official time requirements for government services, business operations, and digital communications. Economic impact studies completed in 2025 revealed that Alaska's time zone confusion results in billions of dollars in lost productivity annually. These losses stem from scheduling difficulties, communication breakdowns, missed appointments, and coordination problems between different regions of the state. Businesses struggle to maintain efficient operations when different locations experience dramatically different daylight patterns while operating under identical official time. The aviation industry faces significant operational struggles with Alaska's time zone anomalies. Flight scheduling, air traffic control coordination, and maintenance operations require precise timing, but the state's single time zone system creates logistical complications that can affect safety and efficiency. Pilots must constantly calculate actual local time versus official time when planning flights and coordinating with ground operations. A federal review of Alaska's time zone designation continues examining potential solutions to address these widespread temporal complications. But Alaska's timing confusion represents just one example of how official designations can diverge from geographic reality, creating situations where even the most famous landmarks might not be exactly where people think they are. Four Corners Monument's shocking inaccuracy. The Four Corners Monument stands as perhaps the most photographed geographic mistake in America. The iconic image shows tourists stretching their limbs across state lines, placing hands and feet in Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, and Utah simultaneously. This famous landmark attracts millions of visitors who pose for pictures believing they stand at the precise intersection of 4 state boundaries. The 2025 GPS measurements reveal a stunning truth that challenges this beloved tourist tradition. Advanced satellite positioning technology shows the monument sits 1,807 feet away from the actual Four Corners point. This distance means visitors have been celebrating their multi-state experience at a location that misses the true boundary intersection by more than 1/3 of a mile. The discovery emerged through advanced satellite positioning technology that provides accuracy measurements within inches rather than the feet or yards of previous surveying methods. These sophisticated GPS systems can pinpoint locations with unprecedented precision, revealing discrepancies that earlier surveying equipment could never detect. The technology has revolutionized boundary determination, exposing errors that existed for decades without detection. Moving this famous landmark presents a bureaucratic nightmare involving multiple state governments, federal agencies, and tribal authorities. The relocation would require approvals from Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, and Utah, each with different legal procedures and requirements. The monuments establish tourist infrastructure, including parking areas, visitor facilities, and access roads, would need complete reconstruction at enormous expense. Visitor numbers have increased since the inaccuracy became public knowledge. The publicity surrounding the monument's incorrect placement has created additional tourist interest, with visitors arriving specifically to experience this famous geographic mistake. The controversy has transformed the site from a simple boundary marker into a curiosity that attracts geography enthusiasts seeking unusual travel experiences. Legal implications extend beyond simple boundary marking to questions of jurisdictional authority and property rights. The incorrect placement creates potential complications for law enforcement, taxation, and regulatory oversight in the surrounding area. Historical agreements and legal surveys define actual boundaries, but the monument's symbolic importance has created confusion about where state authority begins and ends. The tourism industry has embraced the controversy by marketing the monument as a unique destination where visitors can experience a famous geographic era. But while the Four Corners Monument represents confusion created by surveying limitations, other American communities face geographic isolation that creates far more serious consequences for residents trying to maintain connections with their own country. Point Roberts, pandemic-era isolation. Point Roberts represents an American town that exists in geographic limbo, accessible by land exclusively through Canada. This Washington state community sits on a peninsula that extends south from British Columbia, creating a situation where residents must cross international borders just to reach the rest of their own country. COVID-19 border closures transformed Point Roberts into one of America's most isolated communities practically overnight. The pandemic restrictions created unprecedented isolation that went far beyond typical small-town remoteness. Residents found themselves cut off from essential services, medical care, and basic supplies that required travel through Canada to access. The border closures highlighted just how dependent this American community had become on international transit for survival. The 2025 population count reveals the devastating impact of this isolation, with residents facing challenges that forced many to relocate permanently. The population drop reflects residents' inability to maintain normal lives when accessing the rest of America became nearly impossible. Families discovered that routine activities like medical appointments, grocery shopping, and visiting relatives required navigating complex international protocols. Border crossing procedures implemented since the pandemic have made access significantly more complicated than before. These new protocols require additional documentation, extended processing times, and enhanced security screenings that can turn routine trips into hours-long ordeals. The increased bureaucracy has created barriers that many residents simply cannot navigate regularly. Residents now require special documentation packages just to reach the rest of America, including enhanced identification, proof of residence, and sometimes advance approval for border crossings. These requirements have transformed what should be domestic travel into an international expedition, requiring planning and paperwork. The economic devastation caused by restricted Canadian transit has been catastrophic for local businesses. Restaurants, shops, and service providers that relied on Canadian customers and American visitors have closed permanently. The tourism industry, which formed a significant portion of the local economy, essentially disappeared when border crossings became prohibitively difficult. Property values have plummeted due to access restrictions, with homes selling for fractions of their pre-pandemic values. The combination of isolation and economic uncertainty has made Point Roberts property essentially unmarketable to outside buyers. Ongoing diplomatic negotiations continue seeking solutions to ease transit restrictions while maintaining security requirements. Point Roberts has become a powerful symbol of how border policies can create unintended consequences for American communities.